All right, we're live again. Today is Thursday, August 6th. This is the Backdrop Weekly Developer Meeting. Nate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Nate Lampton. I live in Oakland, California. I'm a core committer, and I'm just here to run through the agenda today.
Gregory, would like to go next?
Sure. I'm Greg. I'm joining from Greece, and I'm just keeping up with weekly updates with Backdrop, trying to help out again.
Great. Tim, would you like to go next?
I'm Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, with the Ducks. Oops, I can't see right now. Yeah, and that's it. I'm trying to track ducks into the meeting today.
That's great. Joseph, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a backend developer.
Jason, are you there? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jason. I'm from Las Vegas as well. Mostly just working on some infrastructure stuff.
Matthias, I don't think is there right now, but when he gets back, we'll see if he wants to introduce himself too. I am Jen Lampton from Oakland, California, and I'm very excited about Tim's Ducks. All right, first item on the agenda today. Since last week, we've had a ton of new contrib modules created. We have a localization client. The Stripe module got its first official release, UberCart Stripe, UberCart Civi CRM integration, and content access. So that's a great set of modules. Integrations, which is cool. Integrations with Stripe, integrations with UberCart, integrations with Civi. Content access is one of the top models for 777, so it's good to get that one done. And localization client is good because that means more people are using Backdrop in other languages. So it's a really exciting set of new modules just in the last week. All right, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Nate to talk about changes to Backdrop Core.
All right. Our current release is Backdrop 116.2, and the next bug fix release will be 116.3. We have a number of issues that are getting merged in and getting piled up into that bug fix release. A couple of these ones that we have on the agenda have been carrying over from week to week without a whole lot of updates. I'm just going to read over what those issues are, but not give them updates because there hasn't been any changes in them. So update.php throws an error about install.php and gives an inaccurate message about your configuration. That's issue 3846. No updates. Site gets stuck in maintenance mode when using self-updates. That's 3956. And let's see, restore views pager by date, issue 2766 is stuck and needs review. And automated PHP-CS code checks, issue 3213, no updates on that one either. Since this is the first meeting we've had that Joseph and Jason have been in for a little while, I'm going to try to solicit you guys, Joseph in particular. This seems like it's one of those things that could be right up your alley. Issue 3213 PHP-CS automated code checks. Jeff did some work on it a while back to get it basically started, but there's a couple of other like roadblocks that are in place that we need to get, like our PHP-CS version updated and Carter module updated to use the latest PHP-CS version. And then
review in Backdrop. Don't let that trip you up. You might think we don't have a coder module, but we have all the sub modules separately now.
Okay.
Didn't Joseph submit some changes to that a month or two ago? maybe some things have changed since then.
That might have been the PHP 5 or 7.4 stuff, maybe.
I did some PHP 7.4 things a while back. Oh, I did. There's a branch where we've already started working on coding standards fixes, and I made a pull request to rebase that against the 1.x branch. But that didn't get merged in, and I don't have permission to merge the branches there, so yeah, Hold on. I need somebody to do that.
So you could use some help on the PHP or on the coder
There's a-
review module. Is that right?
No,
Or
no,
is
no.
it-
On Backdrop core, there's a PHP-CS branch. I need someone to merge 1.x into that branch
Okay.
because it was forked from the 1.x branch over a year ago, and so it's way out of date. So yeah, and then I have also looked at the PHP-CS thing, although the latest version of PHP-CS, I think, does not support any of the PHP 5.x versions. So that's a thing.
Yeah, that could be fine because we can run the code checks on a particular version of PHP. You know, we can run the code checks on PHP 7,
Okay.
and that's fine.
All right. Yeah, I can work on this then.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. It's something that I think would help with our feedback loop, making it so that people get feedback immediately, even though it's from a machine. It still saves a lot of time from code reviewers.
It also is really helpful for us too, like the coders, where you're like, oh, I forgot I need to do that.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. Let's see. One issue that we've had going on since 1.16 is that ordering text formats has a visual regression on the administration form that you change the order of the text formats, but then the table that shows the list of text formats doesn't appear to reflect those changes after you save it. That's issue 4407. We have a pull request now for that one. Yay. Indigo Zella has reviewed it as well and marked it works for me. I think that could use I could use a second look and confirmation. There are tests in there as well, but I think that one will probably be able to get tidied up here before the next meeting. Okay, then we have this list of issues that are almost, quote, almost done, that are relatively easy, like low-hanging fruit issues. I have this issue to set a reasonable amount of max input vars and max input variables. It's issue 3824. This makes a notification on the status report as well as some changes to the htaccess file to make it so that that variable gets set and doesn't trip people up. The only thing we're missing here is a link to a documentation page describing how to increase your max input vars if the automated changes don't work. So it's not just a link to a documentation page, we need the documentation page as well. So that's probably the real kicker. I don't think that documentation page needs to be perfect. Like we can put in a pretty minimal set of instructions there just to get a URL to link to, and then we can merge the pull requests and then iterate on that documentation page.
Yeah, I think that the problem there is it depends on the environment, like operating system, whatever. So there's a lot of documentation online on how to do it. Maybe we can grab whatever is common and just stick it there. I'll give it a go if I happen to find some time.
We even, if there are good sources doing it in different systems, we could also even just say, aggregate some links, like here's how to set max input vars for, Apache on Ubuntu, Apache on Windows. But I think officially we only, we only support Apache. Is that right?
Yes.
I know that we don't officially support IIS, and Nginx is like, well, you've got to do that all manually anyway. So really, I guess that page, for the most part, is probably talking about the unofficially supported ones, unless your Apache isn't reading htaccess files. I see what you're saying. There's a lot of things that could potentially go wrong there.
Yeah, we can put something generic and then say like there's nothing like we cannot include the entire internet as in
Does this go in the
people. Sorry?
installation section?
Oh yeah, right. I thought about that actually. So the PHP section has a really tiny bit where we have the system requirements. You're saying, right?
Mhm.
Well, so it could be right next to the. So the two pages we have in here already, I threw the link in the Zoom chat, are a database configuration page and a HTTP post header attack protection page. Does that sound like the same place where we'd want to put this?
I'm sorry, what
Yeah,
was?
I guess.
I was just asking what, like, if we're going to create a new documentation page, where does it go? And so we have a section on advanced installation. I didn't know if it fit in there or not, or if this was not advanced installation. I put the link in Zoom.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so the advanced instructions are on the API side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like that would be appropriate underneath this section.
Yeah, in next to database configuration or something.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Just like other documentation pages, though, it's best if
It's a nice short URL.
you would give them a top level link so it doesn't matter if we move it later.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so to make sure that we're looking at the same page, you're talking about the / installation one, right? Then?
It is no / advanced - installation. There's a link in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, okay. So the only thing that's listed there is just using Drush, right?
Yeah, so it's not going to go on that
The
page,
sub,
be its own.
yeah, the sub page.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was looking at so this page is being linked to from the / installation from the main site, and I'm looking at the installation instructions on the main site, and that thing seems kind of long.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it. If it's appropriate, well, if it's appropriate, we can segment this out into other pages.
Yeah.
But this isn't horrible.
No, it's
Like
not.
as far as being very long, it could use some pictures. Yeah, the section about run the installer is a little bit
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, so my take is always that if you have installation instructions and you're throwing a huge page at people, it's a bit off-putting. So if you sort of like list the steps like 1 to 5, and then you have subsections for each one of them, sort of like makes it less daunting, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny because the overall list on this page is actually 1, 2, 3. Download
Yes,
backdrop,
exactly.
create the database, run the installer.
Yep.
It's not that hard, but
yeah, the other thing is troubleshooting additional steps that can go on a separate section. That's what I was saying.
yeah.
All right, another thing for my to-do list.
All right. So anyway, that's related to 3824,
Yep.
the max input vars thing, documentation and holding that one up. Next up, we've got a couple of issues that just need review. Removing the search title, or sorry, removing the block title for the search box, issue 3476. It's just a aesthetic thing to make it so if you place the search block on the site, it doesn't have a search title on the block and then the search label in front of the search and then the search word inside of the search box. It's a lot of redundancy there. 3476 just needs review. This slightly weirder problem with views, ORing together multiple filters. It doesn't work quite right. Issue 3415 currently needs review. Then there's a nice section here of things that got merged this week. Hooray! CK editor is not respecting language. That actually got merged 2 weeks ago, 4492. That if you have your site in another language, the button labels in CK editor were not respecting the language. That has been corrected. Simple title, when you're registering an account, that the page title is not getting translated. Issue 4493, that got merged in. This helpful change to make it so that our PHP files, the syntax highlighting now works on GitHub, issue 4404. So if you look at a .module file or .install file or any file that's not a .php file on GitHub, that is now has proper syntax highlighting thanks to a new Git attributes file that we added. We don't have the link for it in here, but we brought it up last week. Gregory, your issue to move the license into the root, which is also GitHub related, that we moved license.txt out of the core directory back into the root of the repository. And that makes it so that GitHub now automatically picks up and identifies Backdrop as being a GPL v2 piece of software.
Yeah, and that works.
Let's see. And then lastly, in the merged section, allowing partial path matching on autocompletes, issue 4478. This just makes it so whenever you link to a node or view, like in CK editor, for example, when you're making a link or in a link field, there's an autocomplete on it. And issue 4478 just makes it so that it now matches in the middle of strings instead of just the beginning. So a real simple change to allow slightly looser title matching there.
Yeah, the initial decision there was to just add some checkbox to enable or disable that, but we decided that we couldn't find an easily, obviously, sort of like a fitting place for it in the subsections of the admin. So we decided to just leave it and go without any setting for now.
Let's see. Next up, CK editor isn't saving in source mode. I haven't checked in on this one.
I can do an update.
Yeah, Tim, that would be great.
Yeah, and I can keep it pretty simple because, so last week, Nate, you articulated what you thought the problem might be and needed investigation, and it has to do with the JavaScript sort of event things. And after you explained it, I asked if you could summarize it because I didn't quite understand, but I went back later, re-listened to what you said, and it made a lot of sense the second time. So I updated the issue with your comments. And I think we just ideally would, if somebody with a little bit more JavaScript experience could look at this issue. And I think there's a number of people here who might not be familiar with the issue. The issue is just that if you save, if you're using the text editor, CK editor in source mode inside of a dialog box and you hit save, it doesn't save your changes. If you do the same thing and you're not in a dialog box, it works fine. And Nate is speculating that it has to do with the handlers or events that we're using in the ajax.js file in the dialog.ajax.js file. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to figure that out myself, but I'm trying to push this issue forward, so I'm going to keep bugging people until somebody with the right knowledge can try and help figure that out.
Yeah, Gregory, thanks Tim for doing that summary, and then Gregory for digging up the line of code where I suggested that maybe we're not triggering enough handlers, and you said we're already triggering all the handlers Nate mentioned. So that might not be it, but it is right there. That is the section that needs to be updated in order to fix this problem. I'm almost certain of it.
Yeah. Team, it's hard to follow you when you speak and there's squirrels at the back. Which squirrel just passing by?
I was wishing the geese were here today, but they're not.
So that one still needs some work. This needs testing, but I mean, we have a pretty good idea of when this occurs at this point. So
Yeah, I will say I'm not sure that this should be included in the list of things that are almost done because we don't have a PR for it yet.
yeah, let's actually move that into the general list of issues because that's a trickier one.
Yeah, and we don't. I wouldn't say we're almost done, although I'm determined to stick with it until we do solve it. So
yeah.
I really like ever since Jen introduced this section, maybe we shouldn't be calling it almost done, but low hanging fruits. So I propose that we keep this section of like up to 10 small issues that we get out of the way. So to clean up the queue, maybe we can remove the ones that got merged for next time and we add a few more. If everyone agrees.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I also like these kind of like we're almost there issues.
I've removed the ones that are done from the template already, but if you have a bunch in mind, feel free to add them in there.
Okay, cool.
I'm taking it a little bit as a personal affront that GitHub and some minor design adjustment has started rounding up our issue number from our 1,970 open issues to the tab. It just says 2K. That we have 2,000 open issues.
The good news is, the good news is that we solved like over the last year's 2,500.
That's true. We do have more closed issues than we have open ones, but still, 2,000 open issues is a lot of open issues.
Not compared to Drupal.
Thanks, Gregory. Okay, let's see. These next issues, I haven't been real close to them. Jen, do you know the status of these blacklist, whitelist, master slave terminology issues?
They all need work. The blacklist, whitelist one, I think, is close. The master slave one has a ton of test failures because of how the slave database was used before. I don't think I got all of the primary, secondary updates in correctly. So I think that is actually breaking stuff. The blacklist, whitelist one didn't. I don't think there was very much that could be broken. It was mostly in code comments that those were in there, so that was pretty easy to change. But there were a couple like variable names and stuff too.
Yeah, I gave a code review on the master slave issue.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of actual bugs in it that
I saw your comment and was like, well, that would explain why everything's broken. So yeah, it needs work.
Okay. All right. Well, moving right along there, then we'll wrap up for the bug fixes, and then we'll move on to 117, which is the next feature release. We are now in the last month of development for 117. Feature freeze is September 1st, which is a little bit nerve-wracking. But on the other hand, we don't really have. This has been a strange summer period. But it's also been a strange summer for backdrop development in that we haven't been pushing new features really strong for this release. And so 117 is looking pretty light. It's a good chance it may stay that way because we only have 1, 2, 3,
4
a
weeks.
little extra weeks left before feature freeze. The one feature that I think we are very likely to get in is this issue that Doc Wilma has been working on, adding support for custom contexts, issue 3750. And we've recapped this issue several times over the last couple of weeks, and the status has been the same, that we need a code review on that and I think specifically it's been requested that I take a look at it, and I haven't had a chance yet. But yeah, that requires getting pretty deep into the layout functionality to give that a code review. So that's, I'm going to say it's mostly on my plate, although additional eyeballs are definitely helpful there as well.
Well, I'm just going to add that I think the other thing that somebody else could do is help with use cases. We've talked about that some of us are still grappling with that and full understanding of this. And it's been suggested that a few use cases would be helpful, because like I'm really hesitant to comment on this issue anymore until I have a better understanding of what I'm looking for. So if
Yeah,
anybody
I
can
started a separate issue. It's linked to that one, and I'm sort of like collating any information or examples that people have been giving out. So in the hopes that once this feature is in, we'll produce a documentation page with some examples, like real life examples of where it's being used, and possibly link to it from the UI, like have a short description of what it does, and then for more information, just take that page.
So other than that issue, use the admin theme for the login form, issue 4410 has stalled out due to some access problems that we hadn't considered when we started that. Issue 4487 spun out of that, removing the view administration theme permission, possibly kicking that into contrib. Jen, do you know the status of that one? No? Okay. Looks like currently needs work. There's tests failing. But everybody seems to be in favor of this. Catherine Sensi popped into the issue just to say she's running screaming into the distance. That's funny.
It was one of the advocates on the d.org issue that introduced it, right?
Oh, was she really?
I think.
Or was she an advocate for overlay? Oh, I see. Oh, she got mentioned. I see. Because Jen copy and pasted some comments. That's funny. From somewhere else. That's funny. So she just got notified.
Sorry.
Turkey's in the background for anybody who's
Yeah, I
interested.
think the last time I looked at this, it was too contentious to move forward without resolving all of the related issues. So I'm not sure this is going to get in for 117. But like there are other ones that like the related issues might. So yeah.
Okay, so basically we all need to take a look at that. The related issues to the admin theme for the login form, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So there's issues linked from 4410 that are like dependencies that we can take a look at.
One of them is the permission that was caused by overlay module, and one of them was allowing a single layout to be used on multiple paths.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The initiative updates, I don't think that we have our leads here. Telemetry, I don't think has been making much progress. And the Ready to Wear initiative, for the most part, isn't actually impacting core directly. So I don't think that there's product updates to be had there.
So there's going to be one change, and it's the promoted projects in installer issue, but that one also has a bunch of moving parts that are not core related.
I'll just say that I've also been pushing, which could be related to that initiative, the safe way to upgrade the basis theme, coming up with a solution for that. And I feel a little bit like the discussion is starting to fragment, and it needs to be like, there's a number of people that seem to be like, oh, I don't think they see the need for this. And so they're sort of pushing like, oh, that we not do. if I can inject, the overall issue is how do we introduce minor CSS changes to basis that could potentially break backwards compatible sites? And there's 4 or 5 different options that have been laid out, including the ability to add a supplemental style sheet. And I see a lot of people like criticizing that because it's too complicated, but then suggesting that, I don't know, like we just tell people their sites might break. I don't know. I'd like to move on this, but I'm not seeing the consensus. I think what my current thought is to just create a PR for the supplemental style sheet. So people are responding to something real and not an idea.
Yeah, it also might help that it's too complicated argument if the pull request is not complicated.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it will be. So I think if we actually have a PR, that discussion might be easier to have.
Yeah.
Jen, are you supportive of the idea of having checkboxes like settings on the theme and then supplemental things?
Yeah.
From a UX perspective, that's the sort of like the most easy thing.
I'm not even sure we need the checkboxes, like a UI component of it, because, and we can debate this in the issue, because when you install Backdrop, like we know which version is installed, we could just set that secretly and be like, from here on out, don't add any additional style sheets. And then every new version of Backdrop would get all the style sheets. And then if somebody later is like, oh, actually, I want this style sheets from the newer version, they could modify the JSON file to update the version of Backdrop for which they want the files. It doesn't necessarily have to be an end user facing feature, because I would say 90% of people are never even going to see that. They're just gonna be like, it works, I'm not even going to think about it.
Yeah, and just to clarify things, the idea is that only potentially breaking things will be sort of like forked, to say. So security related and obvious things would still go into the main thing so that everyone takes advantage of, improvements, right?
Yeah, it would only, and it's in the few issues that we have, it's like not very much CSS either. So if you were running your own version, you might just put that in your own theme rather than trying to find that setting in core that's going to include that amount of CSS. So I think it's a lot of concern for a problem that will happen rather infrequently, but it will give core a lot of power to be able to make improvements without worrying about breaking stuff. So
the only caveat there, what I was thinking is that even those changes that did break, the only one that comes to mind was the one that we were aligning captions with images. And I'm going to add that comment because Olaf asked about that in the issue. And my comment there is that we didn't know that it was going to be breaking.
Yeah.
To begin with.
Yeah.
So in such cases, when we realize that it is breaking, are we going to be moving that code out as
the solution with that one was like, oops, we broke everything, let's revert it. But then if we decide that that CSS, that exact CSS is what we want to include, we would put it into a conditional included sheet. I think for that particular issue, there was also the maybe we should rethink the CSS on it. But I don't know then if after that we're like, let's not risk doing it again and put it into a conditionally included style sheet, or if it would just be like, we're sure it's not going to break anything and we'll put it in.
Yep. Okay.
So we'll see. Issue by issue, we'll decide where the code to go.
Nate, what do you think about that? Are you?
He'll review it when there's a pull request.
I don't.
Nate is sitting there silently in the background. He's like,
No, I don't have any good ideas for this.
Is this a problem that stems from the fact that we encourage people to sub-theme something that's like an actual theme and not a base theme?
I think that is one of the crux issues here, and that it's made to sub-theme, and that we kind of encourage people to sub-theme it. Yeah, but
yeah, to me, the problem though is the problem is I want people to be able to not have to sub-theme basis, right? That basis should work. You should be able to do certain things in the UI that don't break. I mean, if you're already to the point where you're sub-theming, then these things aren't big issues, because most of us that sub-theme can fix them pretty easily. But it's like, it's like a gap between two blocks that just shouldn't be there, right? How do we fix that for folks who aren't going to bother to create a sub-theme without potentially breaking it for people who have already sub-themed
or custom themed?
Or custom themed,
yeah. Yeah, because if we put these changes in core as opposed to in basis, then that's also an issue. So like the float left right stuff for the images, that went directly in the image handler and not in the theme. So complicated.
Yep, it's tough. And yeah, none of the options are really without risk or without repercussions.
I think we have our next steps though. Let's try to get a PR for that, the supplemental style sheet, and play with that a bit, and then see if people, once they see it, maybe feel better about it. So I have one other issue that I added to the list, which has been getting a lot of activity, and I think could be a small new feature in the next backdrop. I was afraid like 2 hours ago that it was also getting a bike shedded to death. And then this is the password constraints issue. And then I noticed that I think Herb posted another update that seems to be taking that in the right direction. Looks really good to me. Just at the point I was getting frustrated and despair,
Rescue.
he came and did a PR that seems to be bringing together all the comments. So maybe we don't need to talk about it, although I would suggest that people look at this, because this has got like 150 comments. Some great ideas have went into it, but I'm afraid that if we don't land this soon, it's going to get lost. And hopefully there won't be any, like Nate, you won't like have any vetoes on it when you, now would be a good time to look at it quickly.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it right now. So there's one checkbox. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that you may have just had at some point there might have been like a default that changed the behavior, and you said, well, the default should be the existing behavior. And I think that's the current thought, is that this, I think I haven't looked at the actual sandbox, but I think there's a reject weak passwords, which my only concern is I don't know if I like that wording, but that's not a major problem. So, but that box would not be deleted or not be enabled by default, because that's not the current behavior.
Yeah, one thing that might change the current behavior is that email has been treated differently in the logic that grades the strength of that, but that can be a follow-up because it's an existing issue.
And
so
plus, I feel like that's such a minor thing that nobody's even going to notice that.
So the reason why I brought that up is because the initial sort of like title or intent of the ticket is to enforce constraints, which were two of them: no username, no email, the same. So effectively, if we're keeping all the logic as it was, the second bit which says no email won't be effective, so it won't be that. But I'm for changing that bit of logic to also include email as sort of like a restriction, because it makes logic. My point was that the explanation that Herb gave, the reasoning was perfect. We just need to adjust the logic when it comes to email, but that's an existing issue. That's how it behaves currently. So it can be a follow-up. We can add the UI bit here, and then we can adjust the logic and follow up.
Right. Anything possible to put in follow-up issues would be good to not risk sending this down another.
Yeah.
That's all I have on that.
Yeah, I like where Herb's going with this, just generally.
Yeah,
that
I do.
It's like a simplified least common denominator type thing. It would be nice if it is extensible, but I'm not sure if it is or not. Like
so that contrib can come and do things, right?
Yeah, because there is already a contrib module, isn't there? Like password policy or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, so it'd be nice if they could work together. Oh yeah, he did a lot of nice things here. Password entropy. Okay, yeah, I would say generally, like, it looks like he's going down a good route here.
Good.
Real simple. Disabled by default. I would want that. But because, well, I don't know. Now I'm not sure. This option is so simple. Now I'm not sure if it should be disabled by default. I don't want people to run into it when they're evaluating backdrop. That's my big caveat. Like I don't want somebody to be doing a local install and just be like admin password on their local and then get yelled at.
Mhm.
Because I don't want to slow down the installation process in any way.
Right.
I don't know. That could be a good thing though. They're like admin, and it's like, that's not secure. Like admin one. Okay, you're fine.
Yeah. WordPress does that, and then as soon as it's weak, it just adds a checkbox, a quick checkbox that says, "Yeah, all right, I know. Allow a weak password," and that's it.
You mean right when you're creating the
Yeah.
first account?
No, when you create user accounts, I'm not sure if it does it for the first account because the demos that I was using were already spun up instances. But when you try to add user account, it already generates a random secure password. And if you reduce that to something that is insecure, a checkbox appears and says, "Yes, I understand. I want an insecure password. Just leave me alone."
Interesting. Yeah, my concern also might be mitigated slightly by our sandboxes, which create a username and password that are random and secure in the first place. And then they tell you what they are. And you have the login link that just logs you in immediately. That makes it so you don't actually need to know your password. And you don't even need to do the installation. So I'm not sure about numbers, about like, if you're evaluating Backdrop, what's the likelihood that you use the sandbox and that's your first experience versus you install it locally?
Yeah, it's personas. So people that are non-technical will probably prefer the demos.
Yeah. Although the gentleman we had join our UX meeting last week, he was like, no, I'm going to download this thing. He seemed really adamant about not using the sandbox, which was interesting. So
I think a lot of pieces of software have demos that are like either put in a state where there's not actually a lot you can do, or they're totally broken. And I think that colors a lot of people's opinions about demos.
Yeah, I think our demos are kick-ass. Just saying.
Yeah, they are actually. Everything. The only objection sort of like to that would be when at the point where we couldn't install any contrib modules, but that was sorted, and then yeah, they're basically kick-ass.
Yep. Yeah, Tim, thanks for raising both of those issues. I think you're right that we have a good shot on at least the password constraints.
Yeah.
Want to tag that for 117?
We could.
Does it have an advocate?
Well, yeah.
No.
No, well, officially it doesn't. I have been acting that way. I'm not a. What?
We don't have to. I just thought we could put it on the agenda and talk about it.
There's at least 4 people, Herb, Team, Indigo Zella, and myself, that are working actively on that. So
let's not worry about it.
Yeah, you can consider all of us, I guess, advocates for that one.
Getting love.
Sure. I mean, the advocate role, it hasn't been, we haven't been using it as well this release. Ideally, like that was the issues that had advocates were the ones that got talked about each week, and we just haven't quite got there. But I still feel like I've got that advocate mindset in my mind, so it's still helping me. Okay.
Well, if you wanted to get talked about every week, you know how to do it.
Well, yeah. Problem is I got 3 of them I want.
I kind of see this cycle as Nate said that it's going to be sort of like poor when it comes to features, but we've done a lot of cleanup, some tiny fixes here and there. And then I had a private chat with Doc Wilmot and decided that when we're sort of like at a shape where most of the things that are considered features are in, then he's going to help me out with reviews and pushing some of the pull requests for tiny things that I've put around so that they don't linger. So in other words, starting to clean up those 2,000 issues that we have. Yeah.
Get it down to 1,000, right?
Yes.
That would be
That's
awesome.
very ambitious.
The problem is, if Gregory starts working on issues, he creates
more.
That's true. Even if we solved 1,000, we'd still be up plus 500.
Exactly.
So each time that you close an issue, you know that I go back and read all the comments, and then if
Right.
something was dismissed as a follow-up, I actually do file a follow-up for it. So
It's good.
I finished the max input Vars documentation page, but I would love some eyes on it to make sure that I included everything that needed to be included on how to set the value
Cool.
through a link.
Did you post a link?
It's in Zulip.
Okay, cool.
Nice. Okay. Do you guys have anything else you would like to bring up? Okay, well, let's finish kind of on time then. Thank you guys for joining the meeting, and thanks to those out there that watch these. Jen, one last thing.
So, Tim and I are going to chat for half an hour about a plan for the backdrop event that we're going to do at the end of September. So if anyone wants to hang out and chat about that now, we'll stop the recording, but probably stay in the meeting.
Okay. Well, let's end it then. Thank you.